haven't actually met her yet, but I've seen a lot of her. Yeah, we bump into each other at
Good morning, fellow Rotarians and guests.
Good morning.
Yeah, I was mostly awake. Good job, good job. And good morning to our online guests. And I'm Len this morning. Actually, I'm Janita Zell, so you guys are going to have to
You got better looking.
Oh, thank you, I know. All right, so this morning, leading us in our flag salute will be Mike Babauta.
Fellow Rotarians and guests, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And leading us in the four-way test, Lori Carroll.
Fellow Rotarians and guests, please join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
Is it the truth?
Second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Fourth,
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
and fifth,
Is it fun?
Thanks so much. So, our guest this morning, we have invited by Madeline White. Madeline, your guest this morning is? Madeline's not here this morning. So, Madeline invited Miss Amy Chen. Amy, everyone say good morning to Amy. And do we have any visiting Rotarians?
Yes, I'm Bobby Williams, and I'm visiting from the West Olympia Rotary.
Welcome, Bobby. Do we have any other visiting Rotarians? No other visiting Rotarians? Do we have any other guests that were not able to sign in this morning? Oh, she's a visiting Rotarian.
I am a visiting Rotarian.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Linda Zeman from Hawkesbury Rotary.
Good morning, Linda. Good morning. All right. So this morning, I would like to take a moment to thank Rotary. Do we have anyone that has has done business with any other Rotarians? They'd like to take a minute. Think Rotary. This is our moment where we take just a minute to recognize doing business with other Rotarians. Anyone this morning?
I got one.
Yes.
We sent a check to Jeff Gadman today.
Yeah. Thank you. Did you get a love note? We all get those. That's great.
Dan came out and cleaned 3 cars for us.
Oh, wonderful. He does a great job. Thanks so much, Dan Bailey. All right, love taking those few moments. So, let's take a few moments for the Rotary Foundation. Nate Peters.
So today we talked a little bit about the Rotary Foundation in the past, and now we're going to talk about one of the giving levels of the foundation. So what can you do with $100 these days? A pair of shoes, a nice dinner for 2, or a stove for a needy family in rural Guatemala. A contribution of $100 to the annual fund will make you a sustaining member of the Rotary Foundation, but it also provides life-changing opportunities for those in need. When you choose to support our Rotary Foundation, you are making a difference in 2 ways. You are changing lives, and you are literally saving lives. What an amazing thing to be able to say. And so for those people who are those people who have a sticker on their name badge that's dark blue, means that they gave $100 to the Rotary Foundation this Rotary year starting in July. The people who have a lighter blue one, myself, is $100 last year. So I will make my gift today to the Rotary Foundation to be a sustaining member for this year. So that's $100. So if you're interested in doing that, let me know. I can help send you in the right way. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nate. So we're going to get on with our program this morning. So Doug Mock is our moderator, and this is my favorite actually part of the year where we have our candidates for all of our local elections. And today we are fortunate enough that it is the Lacey City Council position 1. And to be our moderator this morning again is Mr. Doug Mall.
Hey, Doug Mall! He's the master.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning, Doug.
Aren't you all excited today? You know what today is?
Wednesday?
Wednesday. You know what? It's Wednesday the 9th?
International Thank Doug Ma Day?
No.
Yeah.
It is the day that your voter's pamphlet gets mailed.
Yeah.
Excited? That means your ballot's going to be arriving in about a week. All right. As a public service announcement there. So today we have candidates for Lacey City Council position number 1. Just by way of background, the City of Lacey uses the council manager form of government, where the Lacey City Council appoints a city manager to oversee day-to-day affairs. The council conducts the city's legislature and policy making, and all council members are elected at large, and council members are not elected by district or ward, as they perhaps are in other jurisdictions. Unlike the City of Olympia, the Lacey City Council selects one council member to serve as chairperson with the title of mayor, presiding over council meetings and serving as the ceremonial head of the city. So in fact, any member of the city council can become mayor in the City of Olympia, or City of Lacey. The position is considered a nonpartisan office. For the Lacey City Council position number 1, there is no incumbent in this race, and so joining us today are Malcolm Miller and Sarah Jean Morris. So if you could start making your way up, I'd like to introduce Malcolm Miller, and this is Sarah Jean. So Sarah, according to Sarah's website, Sarah went to Tumwater High School and grew up in Lacey and has called Lacey home for 15 years. She lives in the Old District with her chickens and cat and enjoys growing dahlias. She is a realtor and considers herself a professional problem solver. Also joining us is Malcolm Miller. According to Malcolm's website, he has lived in the City of Lacey with his wife and 2 daughters for over 18 years. He currently works in the banking industry, and prior to that, he worked for the Department of Defense. He is an active volunteer, including mentoring youth through Celebrate Recovery, as well as director of the Thurston County 5K Race Against Trafficking, church men's ministry leader, and as the church worship ministry musician. Need more musicians in oh, that was not an endorsement. I played drums before becoming elected. So one of the things here at Gateway Rotary I want you to note is that we only have one microphone. There are simple rules here, and that rule is that only Jerry Farmer can touch the microphone. That's right. So we're going to share the microphone, 3 of us. You're going back and forth. And so I will serve as timekeeper, and you will know that your time is starting to run out as I start to encroach on your personal space. If I physically bump you, it means time's up. If I touch the microphone, you're done. Okay? So, got the rules straight. So what we start off with is a 2-minute introduction, and I think we'll start with Sarah. So if you could do a 2-minute introduction, and then Malcolm, and then we'll go to the first question, which you already have seen, and then we'll go from there. So Sarah, 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Get close to the microphone. That's all right. Get close. Perfect. So, now.
Good morning. I think you ran down actually my whole introduction, so I don't have a lot to say. Just kidding. My name is Sarah Jean Morris, and I'm running for Lacey City Council position number 1. A local realtor for actually 16 years. And while I grew up in Tumwater, actually went to Tumwater High School, my best friend lived here in Lacey, so I have spent the majority of my childhood here in Lacey and consider Lacey my home. For the most part, my campaign so far has been, what got me into the race was waste management, watching how our recycling program works, the amount of garbage that we have. And then as I dove into it, I realized it's a much bigger problem than is solvable at a city level. And then the next part, homelessness, I think it's kind of I like to say the new pink. It's the big thing that's happening locally here. And then when it comes to homelessness, I believe that we need to handle it with grace and compassion, but also accountability and realistic goal setting. And then the third part, fiscal stewardship. A big part of what's important to me as a taxpayer is how your taxpayer money is spent. In Lacey, it's not a huge, a huge problem. We have AAA rating or double A plus. I was corrected last week. Rating with the S&P, and because of how well the city of Lacey does managing your guys' tax money. How many people here in the room are Lacey voters? Okay, I just always like to ask that. And
Thank you.
thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. First of all, my name is Malcolm Miller, and I'm running for Lacey City Council position number 1. I have been Lacey resident for the last 18 years. I was actually born and raised in the Seattle area. I moved to Lacey in 2001. I began this race with actually just volunteering for the Thurston County Coalition Against Trafficking, at which time I met a friend, and that friend said, hey, maybe you should join the race, and I would like to see you become a city council member. This was after my first two directing the 5K for the Thurston County Coalition Against Trafficking, so I'm the 5K director there. And by day, I'm a loan officer, so I spend my time crunching numbers. And there's, during the time that I've been here at Lacey, I've seen Lacey grow. When I first got to Lacey had 28,000 citizens. Now there's 50,000 citizens. And one of the things that I noticed about Lacey is that, we spend most of our disposable income in other cities. I noticed that, there's things that you just can't do in Lacey. You can't buy a car, you can barely buy clothing. And I'd love to see the Lacey retail tax base expanded. I think we have plenty of room for financial growth. I recrunched the numbers last night, and I noticed that the city of Lacey comes up a little short on retail tax base when it's compared to other cities, especially Olympia. And so when I recrunched the numbers last night, I actually came up with some figures that I want to share with you guys, because I pulled the budget for both cities. And so when it comes to sales tax alone, Lacey's at 45% of Olympia. When it comes to sales and property tax, Lacey's at 42.3%. And when it comes to sales, properties, and utilities, Lacey's at 47%. But at the same time, we're at 97% of their population. So you can see how that's a little skewed, and I'd really like to tackle that and a few other things. Thank you for your time. Hopefully you vote for me in November.
First question you guys have already seen, that is, what are the 3 most pressing issues facing the city of Lacey, and how would you address them?
You have 1 minute to answer, and we will start with Malcolm.
I think the 3 most pressing issues, I've already touched on one, which is the retail tax base. We need to grow it. We need more businesses here in Lacey. We need to attract the kind of businesses that are going to help us generate some tax revenue. I think the homeless problem is another big one, and I have a plan for that. I don't have time to tell you the entire plan in my 37 seconds that I have left. I also think that growth is on the way. I know that, a lot of Seattle has moved to Tacoma, a lot of Tacoma is moving down to Lacey, and we really need to look at growing our housing. And I'm a loan officer all day, so I get to see the real numbers. We don't have enough, which is cool for me because my house is worth a whole lot more because of our short inventory. However, we are going to have to fix this problem. I'm really excited about the project that just got approved on 15. That's going to bring 363 new houses, not all houses, some are apartments, but we are growing. We will outgrow Olympia within the next 3 years, and we really need to prepare for that.
I realize going second is not part of is one of the hardest parts in these debates and these forums, because what I'd like to just say is what he said, and that apparently doesn't work. But it is true. I mean, he just rounded out the problems that Lacey is faced with, and it's funny because when you door knocking, you would think that the homelessness is the biggest thing that Lacey is faced with right now. It's what everybody wants to talk about. And truthfully, as a resident and also looking at the numbers, I think that the biggest thing that we're faced with is that actually out of all 4 cities, we have the lowest sales tax revenue here in Lacey. So that kind of goes to show you how well our money is managed. So that's where I really think that we need to focus on. Over in the northeast corner there, northeast, yeah, over on the side of Jubilee, I think that we have so much room for potential growth.
Thank you. I'm glad you want to go first then, because the next question will start with you.
Oh, geez.
So this one comes from Janine E., and Janine wrote, both a working knowledge and level of commitment to the office is evident when you prepare in advance to undertake your role. Exactly how many times in the past year have you physically attended both City of Lacey Council work sessions and council meetings in order to prepare for the role of being a city council person? 1 minute.
That's a great question. I actually started, well, I've been watching, one of the things that I love about the City of Lacey is that you can watch the city council meetings online. So, watching online, I mean, I've been pretty religious as far as watching for about the last year, and then physically I started showing up in February. And I definitely make it to at least 1 work session and 1 meeting a month, and I really try to make it to all of them.
I started going to Lacey City Council meetings about 2 years ago when the Thurston County Coalition Against Trafficking moved its meeting to Lacey City Hall. We were down at the synagogue down in Olympia, and then we moved to Lacey City Hall because they offered us the space at no cost once a month. So the meeting, it just so happens to be over at the same time the City Council meeting starts, which is 7 o'clock. So I just kind of went from one room to the next room. And then after this, the race started, then I started going a little bit more often. I've only been to a couple work sessions. You don't always know what exactly they are, but I've been going pretty religiously for about 2 years.
Thank you. So the next question comes from Jeff G. Jeff writes, Lacey is growing rapidly and is now over 50,000 in population. Lacey has always been tremendously attractive to people wanting to locate to a community that is easy to live in and welcoming to new businesses. How do you accommodate new residents and businesses without alienating those that are already here? We'll start with Malcolm. 1 minute, please.
That is a good question. One way we tackle that in the, I'll say the culture that I come from, is in smaller groups. So a lot of times what happens is as you get bigger, you have to make your circles smaller so that you can continue to have intimacy at the same time that you have size. So I think that attracting businesses and attracting people is going to happen, but in order for that to really happen as well as it possibly can, we really need the county to release the urban growth areas to us that we can build there and manage those areas.
Great, thank you.
So I think one of the things that I absolutely love about Lacey is if you are on Facebook, we have events all the time. And Hunter Park's kind of become the central location, where things are happening here in Lacey. And I mean, we have so many different events we just had the big Sasquatch. I don't know, did anybody make it to the Sasquatch exhibition? It was awesome. And then the annual stuff that we're starting to do, the Brews bands, I think there's Brats, I knew there was a third one. Events like that I think that there's a bonding that takes place. And one of the things that the City of Lacey is working on right now is, oh gosh, I just looked at the time, is putting together like a midtown. So I look forward to that, and I think it will just continue to cause community.
So the next question comes from Trudy S. Trudy writes, Lacey has been working on affordable housing issues that are affecting our region in a less visible way than our neighbor Olympia has. What do you think the role of Lacey should be in the next 4 years to provide regional stability for all citizens of Thurston County? I'm assuming she means regional housing stability for all citizens of Thurston County. So we'll start with Sarah G.
So one of the programs that I absolutely, when it was rolled out, I mean, as we were rolling it out, I was like, oh my gosh, what a great idea, is the ADU program that Lacey's currently working on. That it's pre-approved plans through the city with financing available. They're kind of putting together this whole package for those people that have big enough lots. You know, Old Town Lacey, a lot of our lots, I mean, I'm on almost a quarter of an acre. And so we have bigger lots that can accommodate an extra ADU. And so we see that is one thing that I am so impressed by that idea. So.
Yeah, she's right. The ADU program is good, and Lacey has identified over 2,000 lots that in the city of Lacey that can handle one extra unit. That extra unit, they will leave you plans and specs for it. They'll connect you to water and sewer for free, and it's awesome. Lacey also did apply for some more federal grants. Copperwood does really good out there, and they're in affordable housing. They're subsidized affordable housing. I've literally taken people from Copperwood and put them into new houses. So a lot of times, I'll break down my homeless plan for you real quick. Yes, the tents are not attractive, but they can work. From tents to tiny homes, from tiny homes to affordable housing, from affordable housing to buying your own house. That's the way I see the homeless people moving through the system, and I'd really love to help do that.
Thank you.
So the next question comes from Michelle W. What do you see as the number one biggest economic opportunity for the city of Lacey that has not been addressed as of yet? And what steps would you take to incorporate such an opportunity moving forward? We'll start with Malcolm.
Okay.
I don't know if it's not been addressed as of yet, but I would really like to see the South Sound Mall area gentrified. And the reason why I say that is because it sits on I-5, and there's a captive audience there of people who would get off the freeway and spend money with us and then get on their way. If we had the right retail stores for them to spend money at. I like what Cabela's did. They said, hey, you know what, we'll put a Cabela's here. They got to cut down some of these trees so that people can actually see us from the freeway. And people do get off the freeway on their way to Seattle, on their way to Portland, spend money with Cabela's. People do get off the freeway, spend money in Hawks Prairie because of the Harley Davidson. You know, a lot of times it just takes one big name to attract them in. They come in and then maybe they'll go a little bit deeper into our city and see that there's other things here available for them. That's one of the things that I'm really hoping for. I've been to the CDC, and I didn't get to ask them about this, but I really want to push this to them because I think this can be a great place for retail sales if we just make that a whole lot bigger.
Great. Thank you. Sergi?
So I was really surprised to learn that there is no, even, I knew that we didn't have any car dealerships, right? Because Olympia has the Auto Mall, and most of those car dealerships have like a non-compete. So the thought of trying to find a car dealership that could come into Lacey, but that's where there's a big, obviously, sales tax revenue in vehicles. And I think that that's kind of an untapped market that we're always going to need cars. You can't even buy a used car here in Lacey. And people think that the one over on Martin Way, Titusville on Martin Way, but that's actually Olympia. So that is, I think, kind of an untapped market that I would love to see come here to Lacey.
So the last question comes from Doug M. The city of Olympia has a high-profile homeless problem. Do you believe that the city of Lacey shares in the region's homeless problem? Why or why not? We'll start with Sal.
So again, in jumping into this, here's what there's this little bit of guilt that comes with being a Lacey resident. For me, as somebody that's kind of in the trenches and on the front lines with our homeless population, Lacey and Tumwater neither have any shelters available. We depend on the city of Olympia right now to house anybody in the Thurston County region. All goes to Olympia. And I thought that was shocking once to sit down and look at it. And while we do give them a percentage of, I believe, one of our taxes, I feel like us opening, people are not going to love that. But we all, I think Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater have all got to combine and each have a very similar program. So like, dang it.
So Malcolm asked me to read the question again. The city of Olympia has a high-profile homeless problem. Do you believe that the city of Lacey shares in the region's homeless problem? Why or why not? 1 minute, please.
I think we do, because when people are homeless, it's not just one person's problem. It affects us as a community. And so, yeah, if they have a problem, we by default also have a problem. And I've been to some of the work sessions, I've been to some of the city council meetings and the process and talking about the homeless problem and the mitigation camp and the different solutions that have come forward. You know, our problem isn't anywhere near as bad as Olympia. I was down there the other night, and it's pretty serious. And so Lacey's problem isn't as prolific as Olympia's, but it's sometimes it's only a matter of time. So we really have to attack this now. And so the short answer is yes.
All right. So before we wrap up with your 1 minute close, each candidate will have an opportunity to ask a question of their opponent. You have 1 minute to ask your question, and your opponent will have 1 minute to respond, and then we'll reverse that. So we'd like to start with Malcolm. If you could ask Sarah Jean a question, please.
Sarah, what narratives would you like to see changed around homelessness?
So I think that there's two narratives that are out there that are not serving anyone. The first narrative is that people tend to relate homelessness and lawlessness. When you go to these meetings, you see that's this common thread that people automatically relate these two things. And I think that makes the services that we want to provide just a little more challenging. And then the second one is I constantly hear people say that the services are available. The services are not available. We have 15 detox beds in Thurston County, 15, to serve an opioid epidemic that we've never seen like this before. We have 100 inpatient beds. That's it. 100 inpatient drug rehab beds. And of those, over half of them don't accept state insurance. So we have a bigger problem. And when you hear people say the resources are available, it makes it sound like people just aren't looking. And they're looking. So.
Great. Thank you. So would you like to ask Malcolm a question?
Malcolm, what have you learned from this experience of campaigning?
That is a great question. 1 minute, please.
I have learned, be ready, be flexible, be patient, do the homework, understand that you are not here for you are actually here for the community, you are here to serve and not be served. You are here to help facilitate, you are here to lift people up, never put them down, help them find a way to get the things done. And I think that one of the most important things I've learned is if you're sitting in a broken down car, you're not going to get any help. But if you get out and start pushing, other people will start helping you push. So I think the message is always be pushing.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, so our 1 minute close here. So we'll start with Sarah Jean and we'll end the conference. So 1 minute, please.
So thank you guys for your time this morning. I will let you know, I don't know that I've literally ever been up this early. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I actually slept in this and just rolled out of bed. No, but thank you guys for having us. I love the good news and bad news. And the good news is that for the position one position, it's a win-win for Lacey. And I wholeheartedly believe that. The bad news is that you can only vote for one of us, and I hope that you choose me. No votes.
All right, thank you guys for having us here today. It's been an experience, and I'm really having a lot of fun with the forums and being able to get out and talk to people about my thoughts. Because at home I live with 4 women, my thoughts don't really matter at home. I'm really excited about the position. I'm really excited to be able to help be able to form policy, help government get out of the way so that we can continue to grow. Because a lot of times you get regulations and you get rules and sometimes they don't make sense. And you're like, this is ridiculous. I'm just trying to make a buck. And outside of that, you know, I really would like to help out with the homeless problem, and I really would like to see Lacey grow as a city, and I would really like to see the urban growth area released so that we can continue to grow and get more housing, more businesses for this community.
A round of applause for our candidate. It takes courage to run for office. You're up here, you're talking to folks. And so again, I want to thank them for coming out and joining us. And as a former elected official, I have to say, Sir Gene, you can get a lot done at 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
So, give you the little reminder. So again, remember to vote. Thank you.
Let's hear it one time, more time for Doug Ma, who does such a fantastic job. Thank you. So, it is my pleasure to have Lori Carroll, our literacy chair, come up and share just a few moments about Literacy Month, which is the month of October.
Yay, Lori!
Actually, Janine, September's Literacy Month. We're just late.
Oh, so there's that.
That's right.
Anyway, so for the month of October,
There you go.
For the month of October, we are collecting books for the South Sound Reading Foundation. So get out there and collect gently used or new books, for kids, for babies through 18, and bring them in. And we're running it as a contest against some of the other clubs, and so we need to really step it up because we didn't do so well last year. So, you know, hit the garage sales or get on social media and beg from your friends. And I know Janine went to two bags from the library. So, any way you can get them, just get them. Thanks.
Question.
Right.
So there are conversations if I just want to give money, do money, like, are we able to do that? What was the decision that we made?
Well,
We need to actually really do books.
we need to do books. There is a Amazon wish list that is on our website that you can go and order books. So
It's super easy.
and it's super easy. Yeah, they'll mail them to you. Amazing. You get money for your points on your airline card. Yeah. What? And now it's my turn to introduce our classification talk. Jeff Engel.
Yay, Jeff Engel! Take it, yeah, you can, yeah. That's just Doug's rule.
Yeah.
Who cares about him?
Well, good morning, everyone. I think I figured out this classification talk. Last time I did it, I did a whole thing on big brothers, big sisters, and didn't realize I was supposed to tell you a little bit about myself and my family. So, what I'm going to talk about today is my journey to Olympia, how I ended up in Olympia. And Procession of the Species has a little bit to do with that. I'll get to that a little bit later. I was born in Columbus, Ohio. I am a Buckeye.
Wow, you look like a dog.
I only lived there for a year, and then we moved to New York. My dad was a research chemist at Ohio State, and we moved to New York. My sister was born, and we moved on to California. But the dog is, that's Lady. I've always had a dog in my adult life, or a couple dogs. They're a big part of our family, and she was just a wonderful dog. Grew up in a little town called, we ended up moving from New York to San Diego and then out to Poway. My dad, again, is a research chemist. He works for General Atomic, and he was a specialist in graphite, and so the rings reactors. And so he took us out to California, grew up in a little town, Poway, which is about a half-hour northwest of downtown San Diego. Great place to grow up, one of those places you could just run as a kid and never had to worry about you know, what's going to happen. You come in at, you know, get your snack, go out, come in at dark. My first job in Poway was I worked at the golf course as a starter. And so I had opportunity to play golf for free. And the picture there is of our golf team. My senior year, we won San Diego CIF and was third in Southern California. The gentleman in the middle with the flowered shirt ended up going pro. He was a +2 handicap in high school. He just blew right by all of us once he took up the game. And he played golf for 30 years on the pro tour. my bucket list was when he became a senior on the seniors tour that I wanted to take a year off and be his caddy. Unfortunately, he got injured and that didn't work out. And that's my mom and dad up there, and then my brother and sister. I'm the oldest of 3. And then I became an anteater. I went about an hour and a half north from Poway to the University of California, Irvine. And my goal was to be an engineer. My dad was a scientist, he wanted an engineer. I got up there and soon found out that wasn't in my DNA. And looked around in other programs and ended up going into the School of Social Ecology. And of course you can imagine the conversations I had with my dad on that one. And it really took me at least 35 years before I actually reached my social ecology degree when I went to work for Big Brothers Big Sisters. So I eventually used the degree, it just took a little longer. So the physique bucket there, my summer job was to be a driver for Z Paint. They were a manufacturing company out of San Diego, had a lot of respect for them. But I swore after college I wasn't going to stay in the paint business. Well, I tried a couple things, looked into teaching, I did some insurance for a while, ended up going back to work for Frizzy and spent 30 years with them through 4 ownership changes. One of the most unique changes was I moved around with them a lot, and I kind of became a desert rat. So I worked in LA for about 8 years, and then I moved to Tucson. And I went kind of fighting. I said, why would I want to go to Tucson after working in LA? But went to Tucson and fell in love with it. Just a beautiful place to live. Was there for 3 years, and then I got transferred to Las Vegas and took the company to Las Vegas. They had a store there. The picture of the Rio was my first big project. I sold all the paint for that when they built the Rio and established Z Paint in Las Vegas. And I also was 35 at the time and hadn't been married and fell in love with the family. And those are my 3 stepchildren. They were 9, 6, and 5 when I met them. They're now in their 30s, and I have 4 grandkids with them. And so they've been a big part of my life. And that's some of the fun things you do when you're in Vegas with your buddies. Vegas is an okay place to live, but it's like Las Vegas. A couple of days and you're ready to go home. I lived there for 3 years, ended up with a wonderful family, and we moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. You know, I played golf, so I loved the saguaro cactuses. I loved the environment. Ended up coaching soccer. I never played a day of soccer in my life. I spent 5 years coaching the kids in soccer. Absolutely loved it. And then my mom and dad moved over to Scottsdale, or they actually moved over to Surprise, and that's when I got transferred to, moved to the Northwest. And after being in the desert and in Southern California, it's like, how am I going to deal with the rain and the snow and all the weather? I ended up settling in Bellevue. That little house I bought for $500,000 before I got married and moved down here. I looked it up the other day, it's worth $1.1 million. So one of my not so good real estate moves was to sell that house before it became big. So how did I end up in Olympia? Well, I had gotten a divorce while I was in Phoenix and was single when I moved up here, so I signed up for It's Just Lunch. You probably have seen it in the airplane magazines. And one of the dates I had, I was working in Tacoma for Parker Paint. That's what brought me over here. I was area vice president. We had 40 stores at the time. And one of my dates was with a woman named Cheryl Selby from Olympia. And we met in Tacoma, and it's a blind date. And well, long story short, that's why I ended up in Olympia. And that's a little bit about my life in Olympia. I've been playing tennis for the last 20 or 30 years. The team went there in 2011. We went to nationals and took 3rd. I captain a lot of teams. I play every week, 3 or 4 times a week. So tennis has been a huge part of my life. Lawn painting. About 6 years ago, or 8 years ago, I got laid off. Sherwin-Williams came in and bought Parker Paint, and they laid off everybody at my level. And I was unemployed for the first time in 30 years. Ended up going to work for Lawn Painting. They're a big commercial industrial contractor, do a lot of big work. So I went from working for a supplier to working for a actual applicator. Did that for 6 years. In the meantime, I became a big. I was looking for something to do. Cheryl had a retail store, so I had a little bit of time on the weekends. Wanted to give back, and being a big brother was the best way that I could do that. Lee and I have been together. There's Bill McGregor, and Lee and I, he took us on a tour of the boats, ships that were in port. And Lee and I have been together for 9 years. He's now 19, and we're making a lot of good progress, and I'm excited about his future. And then there's a picture of my family, my new family, which would be Cheryl and Marta and Gretchen. It's terrific having stepdaughters. And then in the picture over here is my family. Halloween is a big deal in our neighborhood. We get 1,000 trick-or-treaters, and we go all out every year. And that's my family. My youngest daughter, they are now in Atlanta. So I have grandkids in Atlanta. I have grandkids in Arizona, and then my mom lives in Surprise, Arizona. And finally, some friends. That's a picture of the crew over at Big Brothers Big Sisters. I love our mission. As Bobby knows, it's tough being in the nonprofit business, keeping things, the lights on and things running, but I love our mission and I love what we do. And then there's a picture of some friends. We're on an Alaskan cruise. 4 years ago, we met a couple when we were on an Italian cruise from Australia, and they're now our travel buddies. So every year we go on a vacation with our friends from Australia, which is really kind of a cool thing. They're from Sydney. And then finally, I'm the first dude of Olympia. Hoping to be for another 4 years. As you know, there's an election going on right now. I've got our fingers crossed that I can spend another 4 years as the first dude of Olympia. So back to the procession of the species. That was kind of my litmus test when Cheryl brought me down. She said, "Well, what do you think about living in Olympia?" And I go, "I don't know. Let's check it out." So she took me to the procession of the species. I passed. And here I am, 10 years later. We just celebrated the 10th anniversary. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Well, with that, I'm going to say goodbye to our online audience. Bye-bye. And hello to our Sergeant at Arms. This morning it is our